Hello, Hey Boomer listeners. My name is Wendy Green. I am the host of Hey Boomer, and it is so good to be back. It was great to have a few weeks off over the holidays, but I missed you all. So it is really nice to be back with everybody today. And if this is your first time joining us on Hey Boomer, you are so welcome. We hope that you will continue to come back to us. So, Retirement goes by many names because retirement is not really what our parents' retirement was like. Um, they thought that, 65, they would retire and relax and maybe move to Florida. A lot of them moved to Florida and, just kind of wait it out. The longevity of lifespan in our parents' and our grandparents' generation was not what it is today. On my bookshelf, I have titles for books about retirement and aging that go from Aging Well, The Joy of Retirement, Retirement by Design, Unretirement, Transitions, My Time, Smart Women Don't Retire, They Break Free. And all of these titles are trying to address what does it mean in today's world to retire. We don't really have a roadmap or a role model. And people smarter than I am have been trying to come up with a new word. Nobody really likes the word. Most people don't like the word retirement. I don't want to say nobody. But I have seen terms such as redesign, reinvent, rewire, become a modern elder, saging. There's all kinds of terms for what it could mean for this next chapter of our lives. And today we're talking to a panel of folks who some are retired and some are thinking about retirement. And we're going to talk to them about what they want, what they thought it was going to be like, what they hope it's going to be like. And I had put out a survey before the holidays that many of you responded to about what retirement readiness means, how ready you feel for it. And we're going to be talking about some of that too. And I think in this discussion, we'll uncover some of the joys and successes, some of the fears and the challenges that people face when they are getting ready to retire. And I'm also going to give you a preview of what's coming up in January. But first, I want to talk to you about my never too old stories for today. These are really fun. I'm having fun finding these. So our first one is about vending machines. This surprised me. The first vending machine was developed in 215 BC to dispense holy water when a coin was inserted. Isn't that surprising? The vending machine has had many incarnations since then, from dispensing stamps and postcards to gumball machines to the automat that used to dispense food. I remember when my mom took us to New Jersey and we got to see the automat. The more recent innovations dispense cars like the Carvana model. And in January of 2021, in the Oakland, California airport, they installed a vending machine to sell COVID test kits. So it's going to be interesting to see where vending machines go in the future. My next never too old story has to do with the Polaroid camera. Y'all remember the Polaroid camera, how exciting that was when you could hit the camera and a picture would pop out and start to develop as you're watching it. Well, my granddaughter got a new version, a new Polaroid camera for Christmas. And I was surprised, we have our phones now, but this is a thing now with the kids. They are excited about these new Polaroid cameras. The first Polaroid was introduced in 1948 and grew in popularity throughout the 20th century. But in 2001, Polaroid filed for bankruptcy. And in 2008, all the factories were closed, except for one in Netherlands. Since then, Polaroid has obviously been rebranded and is gaining traction once again, particularly with the younger generation. So there you go. What is old is new again, as are we with reinvention or branding. It is never too old. And I want to talk to you for a moment about the power of multiplying. Okay, so here's how it goes. You tell 5 people about the Hey Boomer Show or the Hey Boomer podcast. They tell 5 people about how much they liked the Hey Boomer Show. And then they tell 5 people, and all of a sudden, we have hundreds, thousands of people who are benefiting from the stories that we share about preparing for life after our full-time careers, about healing our fears and worries about what's next, just learning and educating ourselves. So go out, tell those 5 people, and let's share this message with the folks who need it. I also wanted to let you know that we now have a Facebook group where we're going to be sharing conversations and ideas and thoughts. And if you'd like to be part of that group, just drop me an email at wendy@heyboomer.biz, and I will invite you to the group. And with that, I want to start bringing on our panelists. So our 2 retired people, already retired, are David Bell and Doris McClellan. David retired after 37 years in banking. He's now a professor at Lander in the business school, and he's a singer-songwriter who performs in the upstate of South Carolina and Western North Carolina. Doris retired from a career in public school administration, and she served for 15 years on the Black River, New York Village Board, 8 of those years as mayor. And Doris is now in Greer, South Carolina. She is very involved with the American Association of University Women and volunteers in several other organizations as well. So we are glad to have both of you with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our 2 contemplating retirement or soon to be retirees are Susan Adams and Kathy McAfee. Kathy is an executive presentation coach, a professional speaker, an author of several books, and a boomer. She specializes in the arts of high engagement presentations, effective networking, and authentic personal branding. Susan worked in and supported TV stations in Florida and Georgia after college. Later, she worked for Digital Equipment Corporation, where Susan and I met. She volunteered and became a mother of 2 children. And in 1995, she earned a real estate license and is now contemplating rewiring after 25 full years in the real estate field. So thank you for joining us, Kathy and Susan.
Thank you for having us.
So I want to jump right in and talk about the survey. And our very first question on the survey was about confidence, how confident people felt in knowing what they were going to do in retirement, feeling like they had a good idea. And 21% said they were not at all confident at knowing what they were going to do. Only 7% said they were completely confident. So Doris and David, how confident did you feel before you retired, and has retirement turned out to be what you expected it to be?
I was relatively confident because I was going to do bank consulting work, I thought. And then I had also put out an overture about teaching, thought I'd do that part-time. But my heart really wasn't into doing any more banking when it came down to it. And the teaching opportunity to do this more full-time came along. So that's what I'm doing now. And I would not have anticipated that, but it's been a good experience for me for sure.
Oh, what happened to Doris? We lost Doris for a moment. Okay, hopefully she'll be back. So, Kathy and Susan, how confident do you feel that you have a plan, that you know what you're going to be redoing in retirement? Kathy?
All right. Well, confidence. It's one of my favorite topics. I'm continuing to face it myself because I teach that and boost that in other people. So sometimes confidence comes from information. So, for example, just last early December, we were having a review meeting with our financial planner, and I hope she's watching today. Her name is Tony Sprouse. She's with Morgan Stanley. And she had made the assumption in the little, analysis of preparation for financial preparation for retirement. She made the assumption that we would retire in 2022. And that was the first time I thought, you mean like in 3 weeks? Like now? And so that kind of hit me off guard. And so I think I've been thrown into a little unexpected lack of confidence because the realization of what was going to happen came on faster than I thought. So I am in the process of boosting my own confidence in this new arena that I'm stepping into. How about you, Susan?
You're muted, Susan.
I was going to say, I can relate to that. For me, I'm still not confident about it. I think what I've realized is that it was going to take more time for me to transition because for real estate, you don't typically just cut it off. Now you do if your license is about to expire, but I have some time left on mine. And so I'm doing it kind of gradually. And I feel like the first things that I need or want to do is get my own house in order and then get my ducks in a row. And so I can do those things while I'm still transitioning. But at the same time, I would like to grow that confidence so that I either have a plan or that I'm more okay not having a plan.
So just to dig into that a little bit for all of you. So to get your house in order, does that mean financially or does that mean in many other ways as well?
Well, mostly other ways because I wouldn't really be considering retiring, rewiring, whatever, if I didn't feel like we had the financial part in place. Obviously, it's better to have, it's more helpful and less stressful to have more money coming in. So that is an adjustment to go from, having kind of open-ended what you might have coming in versus being on a true fixed income. And so that part is very much an adjustment and a little bit scary. At the same time, as long as, the savings are strong and all of that, then it's not as stressful.
Mm-hmm. And Kathy, confidence has never seemed to be something that you've lacked. So what are some of the areas that seem to be most challenging for you right now, thinking about what's next?
Well, for me, it is involving shifting from role to soul. And I am quoting one of your past guests, Connie Zellwig. And this is one of the benefits of hanging out on the Hey Boomer Show. You meet some cool people that plant some really great seeds. And Connie's book came at the perfect time. So the inner work of age, shifting from role to soul. So the giving up part of my transition is really about letting go of how I've defined myself in the past, what I've been doing in the past. It doesn't mean I have to ditch it all, but I have to go from redefining what success and happiness looks like and how I invest my time and energy. And so I'm not, as an entrepreneur, and I've been one thankfully for the last 16 years, I can have a long runway. But it has cost me some sleepless nights about this idea of letting go. And it really is, Wendy, about identity. Like the way you introduced me, that's what I do or have done. It's not who I am. And so I've got to go to this being mode as opposed to doing mode. And that's an interesting transition.
That is a great point, Kathy. And David, having been a banker for 37 years, that was your identity. How was that? How did that feel for you to make that shift to, I'm not a banker anymore?
Feels good now. Uh, I don't miss it, but although the people I work for a really good company, so I was fortunate there, but it was still a part of my thinking process, you might say, because when you think like a banker, you don't just abruptly stop thinking in those terms. But with the teaching that I do, I use a lot of my financial expertise and background anyway. And, but, you know, I would recommend talking with a financial planner, which is what we did, not knowing I was going to be divorced approximately a year later. But at any rate, that's very helpful to make sure your wills and your insurance policies and all that stuff is where it needs to be, in addition to having your investments hopefully set up to sustain for a long period of time.
But identity is a big part. You know, I when I shifted from being in learning and development to, well, what's next, and came up with this show, you know, now that's my identity in so many ways. But there's more to that. Like you said, Kathy, you know, who am I inside? And that's an important question. Who do you want to be? Philip says, be, do,
Really,
have.
I think getting comfortable with a new identity takes a little time, where I'm transitioning and looking forward and trying to see every day as a new day and a new opportunity. But still, it takes time to do that. You transition from what you were doing, whether it be real estate like Susan's doing, or Kathy's business, or whatever. I mean, it takes time. It's not just going to happen overnight, or at least it didn't for me.
That whole question of identity, to me, is very huge. I remember before I went to work for Digital Equipment Corporation, I worked for This Can't Be Yogurt. And before that, I had been in a more corporate environment with Cox Communications. And I remember, even though I was a manager in one of these stores, but it was so different because people were coming in, you know, on their lunch break. The professionals were coming in on their lunch break, and I was in my little uniform, teenagers. But the complete situation, of course, you know, you kind of develop an identity working in IT, and then real estate. People are coming to you, looking to you for counsel, advisement. Hi, Doris, glad you're back. And so now I don't know that I'm going to have a new identity. In other words, I will, but it won't necessarily have a label. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that's true. You know, it may have a label. I mean, you are Susan, but who are you being? That's a big question when you go to a party or you meet somebody new and they say, so what do you do? I mean, that's usually one of the first questions. And that's one of the things that I think as a retired person or a rewired person, we have to think about, what's our answer to that? What do you do? How do you answer that now, Doris? Welcome back.
Thank you. That had not happened before, but anyway, our internet dropped totally off. What do you do? I don't even say I'm retired, actually. I kind of skirt the question, I think. I stay busy. I get up every morning and have something new and different to do. I have a day timer that is packed. Now, how does that happen? I think just by being ourselves. I mean, you're not going to be a whole new human. If you were involved in the community in the past, you probably will have more time and maybe more energy to do more of what you love, whether it's your church or your other kinds of things. So I guess we went past the question about retiring and why we did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's an important point that you brought up, that you'll be yourself. And in a lot of ways, I think when we've been in our work mode, we may have put some of who we were on the back burner because we didn't have time. You know, maybe I always wanted to be a gardener, or you always wanted to be a performer, or you always wanted to be, you know, a schools volunteering in the schools or whatever, but you didn't do it because you didn't have time. And so now it's an opportunity to look at all those things that you dreamed about once and how can they become part of who you are again, because that's still who you are.
I think that's the gift of retirement, if there is one, is time and choices.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
I was thinking, Wendy, maybe that question, that old standby question, who, you know, what do you do for a living? Maybe that's the wrong question for everybody. Everybody hates that question.
I know everybody does.
As opposed to who are you and what are you passionate about? Who are you and what do you want? You know, who are you and tell me about, you know, what ignites you, whatever. Maybe we're just asking the wrong question. And now this is a time for all of us to be changing the question we ask of ourselves.
I love that. So let's try that next time we are out meeting people. Instead of saying, what do you do? Say, oh, so tell me about yourself. Who are you? Yeah. Yeah. That'll put people like, whoa.
Yeah, kind of personal.
I know. So one of the other questions was, I asked the in the survey, how about support? You know, do you feel like you have the support that you need to make this transition? And you know, this was like the emotional support, and many people said yes, but there was still 35% of the respondents who said, well, they didn't feel like they had the support, or they didn't know who or how to ask for the support. So let's go to David first. What types of support do you think you needed or would have wanted as you were transitioning from the bank to what was next?
Hey Boomer was a good one for me. Helped me kind of rethink my position, but I would advise people for support to have a good relationship with their tax person, a financial advisor, an attorney, estate planning, all those things that you have to think about if you have children or grandchildren. How are you going to deal with it as you get older? Because the older you get, the road narrows as far as the number of years you may have left, although you never know for certain. But as far as support, obviously, if you're your family, your wife, if you have one, or husband, children, all need to be there to help with the changes that you go through and the way your life changes from working every day to something different.
What about you, Doris? What kind of support do you maybe wish that you had or you did have that worked out really well?
Well, I agree with David with all of those things, especially the financial pieces. And but I think I looked for friends and other people. I looked around me and who's retired, and I want to look for people who cause me to say, that's the kind of retiree I want to be, and take advantage of them. Now, there are organizations like Senior Action with lots of resources that you might reach out to, but reach out to those around you and look at those people who've retired, and are they happy?
Good question. Did you have a mentor? Either one of you, did you have a mentor that you kind of looked to that had retired before you?
I did not.
No, not really.
Susan, what about you? What kind of support do you think you would want or need as you move through this?
Interestingly enough, I didn't really think about the fact that I might need support. I just figured it was just something people figured out for themselves. But honestly, what you're doing, Wendy, is so useful, so beneficial. And I think that that's part of the kind of support that I needed. But and it's evolving. In other words, I'm still not 100% sure, other than obviously the financial part. And I do feel like couples have different, we have different roles also. Our, your significant other, and your own involvement may or may not change. In other words, maybe it maybe there should be more control or understanding on my part for things that my husband has done all these years. And so there's a trend, there is a challenge in itself there for couples to work out, making sure that both people know what's needed. I'm sure that, Doris or David, maybe Kathy too, and you too, can, give feedback on that. But certainly friends, I do have, I have a couple at least, friends that are retired, that are, actually past clients that I really, really enjoy a lot. And I loved watching what they were doing, or learning about what they were doing. And there's really a lot out there for us to do, but it's just finding our niche, or finding what's comfortable, in these times, and going with it.
Yeah, and couples is a big one, Susan, because a lot of times we think we know what our partner wants in retirement, and you just assume they want what you want, and you find out that's not necessarily true.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Wendy, I think too that unless a couple is retiring simultaneously, the one who doesn't retire is going to be impacted a great deal by the other one who's hanging around all day.
Yeah, that's right.
That can create some problems, obviously, for obvious reasons. But I think, if the other person in the couple's already retired, or if they're still working, there's something to talk about there.
Yeah. Kathy, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I think social support is critical to well-being at any age and any stage. Like, I was writing a note today, I was talking to my husband, Byron, about, financial health and physical health. And we got to social health. And, you can't do this alone. You're not going to stay all day at home. COVID is another layer, and the quarantine, that has kind of made it a different kind of experience. But as those of you who are thinking about retirement, including myself, beginning the process, we cannot just kind of go into our little hovel and be by ourselves.
Right.
We have to continue to build our network, build relationships, friendships, professional connections, personal connections, neighbors, young people. Don't just hang around people your own age. I mean, you want to, I've studied networking for a long time, and I hope I continue to practice it. A global network. Because, you might want to travel and stay with someone in, Tuscany or something like that.
There you go.
But I think having, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert or an interpersonal personality type, you're going to need people in your life that you can confide in, that you can spend time with, that you can learn from. And I think that's how we are going to stay healthy longer.
Yeah, I think that's critical. Thank you for that. Another question that I have that wasn't really part of the survey, but as boomers, we've been a big part of radical social change. I mean, if you think about in our lifetime, our beliefs about a woman's role and our beliefs about race relations and about gender equality and sexual orientation and birth control, all of those things became much more acceptable or changed in our lifetime. But we all still are aware that ageism is something that is still prevalent and it is starting to be talked about more. But I'm not just talking about ageism at work. It's the ageism, the internal biases that we have, where people, you talk to your friends and they go, yeah, well, I'm too old to do that now. Or, yeah, well, nobody really wants to hear what I have to say anymore. Or I may not have the energy for that. So I'm wondering how your internal ageism might be getting in your way as you're transitioning or thinking about transitioning. Doris, you want to start?
Well, I don't think about it a lot. I really don't. I have a book beside me that I find inspiring. It's called Lastingness.
Lastingness.
Yes, and it's about all the people in history who did their best work and contributed the most in the second half of their lives. So I'm just an eternal optimist about that kind of thing. The important thing is to stay healthy, people. I really, do what you have to do and take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and then make every day whatever you want it to be.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Kathy, what do you think?
I want to hang out with Doris more often.
I know.
Years and years ago, I came to want to grow up to be like Georgia O'Keeffe. She was my model. I bought a biography of her. I just loved how she aged with grace and continued to do work and live her life. I think she almost made it to 100 or maybe over. And so that's kind of where I see myself. I even thought about moving to the Southwest, to New Mexico, just to, be with her vibe. I don't know. I chose South Carolina instead, a little more balanced humidity. But I am finding that ageism, it's like an unconscious bias. You're unconscious that it exists. So, for example, when we get the copy of the AARP magazine, I don't even touch it. I don't even look at it because I'm afraid to go, hey, look, that's me. The word retirement, I have a visceral reaction to. And I remember once going to a group that had a majority of people who were older than me. And I came away going, I'm not like them.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of rejection that I don't want to be that. That's not me. I'm not, and that is ageism. That is, those are the signs that we are uncomfortable with our own life stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it is the inner work of age, as Connie Zellweger says. We have to face our own ageism, not just blame everybody on the outside. It is part of our, society, our social biases, but we've adopted them.
Right. And it's part of changing your own limiting beliefs, your own, things that are holding you back. David, what about you? Do you have experienced that?
I think I don't use the term retired anymore. Even though I've retired twice from two different banks, but I'm not that same person anymore. I'm not a banker anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still adjusting to that. And I think people that know me are adjusting to that too, because, when you do something for that long and that was your reputation and your job, and that's what you did every day, then it does change. But I'm trying to discover the new me, the new person that I may become. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like.
What is the saying you use, David? Don't let the
old man in. That's what I think that was a Clint Eastwood quote, because somebody asked him that, he's producing movies and directing movies when he was in his late 80s. He says, just don't let the old man in.
It's all about what we tell ourselves. Susan, Do you ever tell yourself, I can't, I'm too old, I get no energy?
No. Can you hear me okay? Uh-huh. Okay, good. No, I don't. But I have to admit that my 71st birthday really bothered me more than any other birthdays. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because of ageism. Just the perception that people have, and just as what you went through, Kathy, what you were saying. I never really wanted to identify myself with not older people, because I always admired older people. To me, our elders are like the most important in our society, and we should be asking them all the questions and and appreciating them and doing putting them on the pedestal just because we have so much to learn from older people. But sadly, younger people are so involved in what's happening in their lives and the new societies that unfortunately you don't see that as often, except maybe within some individual families. And so, also, I think that our personal experiences, like I'm very blessed to have both of my parents still. They're 97 years old.
Wow.
They're in very different places now in terms of, where they are. But just different things happen in our lives that make us look at the reality that we're not going to live forever, and so I want to make the very best that I can for every day that's left. And
Yeah,
hopefully a lot of them.
And I think Darsa's comment, to try and stay as healthy as
Absolutely.
possible,
Mm.
plays
How do you
into that.
do that? How do you stay healthy?
How do you stay healthy? Good question.
Good
What do you
question.
do to stay healthy, Kathy?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Wendy, because I just bought a hula hoop. This is not any ordinary hoop. This is a weighted 3-pound, a wide circumference hula hoop. And I used to do this as a kid, and I loved it. And I used to win competitions.
Oh,
Yeah, I can really go. This is a great exercise tool, but mostly it's just a whole lot of fun. And so, been out there just hula hooping, seeing how long, doing it to a couple songs, laughing, giggling, moving, moving the odd bod. We also just started taking Taekwondo classes again during the pandemic because they were offered virtually. And I love the warm up that we used to take it back in Connecticut when we lived there. It was the same warm up every class. It was kind of boring, but now it's a metaphor. And it starts with begin with knees. So you bend down and squat and then stand up and then bend down. And I'm like, man, begin with knees. That's how I'm going to stay healthy. So moving, having fun, getting outside, get out of a dang chair. If you're able to move, keep moving.
I think fun is critical too. I was talking to David about this the other day that, when I'm working, I can become so consumed with work that I forget to stop and have fun. And, fun is critical. Fun is a big part of our health. Laughter is the best medicine, they say. So I think not just physical movement and getting out in nature, which are all super important, but for me, I have to remember, have fun. Yeah. Anybody else want to chime in on how they're staying healthy?
Well, Wendy, I know you have a hula hoop. And now we know Kathy does a weighted one, which really sounds cool. I have a couple in the garage, which I tried when the kids were here. And I used to be able to hula hoop really well, but it's not working the same right now. So I'm going to have to work on that. Maybe a weighted one will make a difference. How about you, Doris? Do you have a hula hoop?
I do not have a hula hoop. And it's a little embarrassing to say that I go to yoga, but it is called chair yoga. Just saying.
Well, but I think
down on the mat, we do stand up too, but a lot of things can be done just to move and stretch and all right in your chair.
That is true. That's excellent. Thank you.
I think that's an important point that you make, because we still in a lot of us in our heads, right? We're still 35. So we think we can do anything, but we can still do a lot of what we're thinking we can do. We just may have to do it differently. So like chair yoga, maybe we don't do all of the downward dogs and things that we used to do.
That reminds me, I'm reading a book also called The Lazy Genius Way. And it mentions about, doing things in small steps. It can be so tiny that all you do is one downward dog or one whatever motion. But if you do it long enough, over a long period of time, you will one day see the benefit. And you can also, of course, grow on those, add to them.
Yeah. And I think that's important part of what, like Kathy was talking about, the transitions and how do you redefine yourself and going from role to soul. You can't do it all at once. It's slowly building new habits and little baby steps and trying them out. That's one of the fun things about retirement, as Doris was saying. There's all these things you can try. So you just try them out in baby steps. So you guys, this has been fabulous. And we are going to have some other shows in the future where we talk about money as far as what happens when your income stops and how do you start being okay with just withdrawing and not depositing all the time. I mean, that's a big transition too. So we're going to have a couple of conversations about that. But the fact that you guys were brave enough to share your thoughts and your feelings and your fears and your opportunities with us and with the audience, I'm so appreciative of that. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
before we go, I'm just wondering if there's any little words of wisdom, special takeaways that you would like to leave with the audience. Anybody?
Well, I have a couple. I say, if you love what you're doing, don't stop. Yeah. The time, the quote unquote time to retire is not an age. But if you feel the nudge, assess the possibility, give conscious thought to your next steps, and move on into your next adventure with your eyes and your heart wide open.
Thank you, Doris. Yay.
I knew Doris would come through.
That's nice. I guess I just want to encourage everyone to not be afraid of this transition, one of the many transitions you'll make in your life, and to embrace the process of letting go, including letting go of that old identity, letting go of all that stuff you used to think was so important, because only by letting go can you get something new and cool and wonderful.
Yeah.
I think there's a certain amount of fear with changing. You know, you said, you described me as a singer-songwriter, which I've done for a long time, but I'm just now really starting to perform, and it's scary. It's intimidating. So we'll see how it goes.
Change can be very scary. Yeah. Susan, did you want to say something?
I said for me, it sounds like David found the song that's in his heart, and that's what we all want to find.
Oh,
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So let me tell you who's coming up and just a couple more things. On January 17th, next Monday, I'm talking to a woman named Helen Hirsch Spence. She's the founder of an organization called the Top 60 Over 60. And what her enterprise focuses on is reskilling older adults by introducing an entrepreneurial mindset and working with organizations to help them better blend an intergenerational workforce. So that should be an interesting conversation. I also wanted to let you know that I am starting a 6-week transition coaching program. It's going to be a group program. And it starts on Tuesday, February the 22nd. And we're going to be talking about a lot of the things that came up today. And I have tools that I'll share with you to stimulate your thinking. The group discussion is going to be dynamic and supportive and challenging. And it will give you some new perspectives or broaden your perspectives as you're looking to this transition of what's next, or if you've already transitioned and you're feeling like you're floundering a little bit. So if you're interested in participating in that or finding out more about it, just talking to me about it, just drop me an email at wendy@heyboomer.biz, and I'll answer your questions. We can talk more about that.
Sign me up, Wendy.
Okay. I'm limiting it to only 6. So
5 left.
5 left. So thank you all for tuning in today. I know that you have lots going on in your lives, and I'm so grateful that you all are here. And before you go, email 5 people or tag 5 people in the chat. Let them know about this conversation. They can either listen to the recording or they can listen to it on the podcast channels, a Hey Boomer podcast. It should be live by tomorrow on the podcast channels. And remember, you are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boom.